What's up, everybody, and welcome to another video. If you are an athlete, specifically a basketball player, then this video is going to be extremely valuable for you because this video is actually sponsored by the guys over at Optilife Academy, who are some of the best in the world in the areas of nutrition and training and exercise and sports performance. And I was able to actually book an interview with these guys and ask them all of the questions that I thought we would want to know as athletes and as basketball players. I literally sat down, asked them all these questions, and they gave me all of their answers. I stole all of their knowledge. I'm going to give it to you here. Well, they're going to give it to you here in this video. So this is an interview style video. So it's a longer video. So I suggest that to get the most out of this video, you listen to this while you are either driving in the car or walking to school or stretching or working out, somewhere where you're already doing something and you could just listen and absorb all the information. That's gonna be how you get the most out of this video. So they are sponsoring this video, so they've decided to give you 20% off of the Optilife Academy course, link down below in the description. It's a compilation of over 100 videos on how to optimize yourself as an athlete and as a human being. Lots on nutrition, training, deep breathing, foam rolling, all that type of stuff. All of their knowledge is in that course. So link will be down below in the description. But without further ado, let's skip to the interview and let's steal all of their knowledge and use it for ourselves. All right, so pleasure to sit down here with you guys.
Absolutely, good to see you, man.
Ryan, so the majority of the people who watch my YouTube channel are athletes, specifically basketball players. So what I would like to do is ask a few questions specifically for them to get the most out of this content. Okay, so let's start with nutrition, then we'll go to exercise, and then we'll talk about the Optilife Academy and what you guys have to offer for that. So the majority of my audience is basketball players. A lot of them would be wondering, what should they eat to best optimize their performance for a game? Let's say they have a game situation, 7 p.m. on a Friday night. What should they eat before that game, and what time? Should it be 1 hour before, 2 hours before, etc.?
I love it. So basketball is a high intensity sport, right? It's full of sprints, cutting, pivoting, a lot of movement that all raises heart rate really aggressively. And the reason that's important is how you fuel yourself is really based on the type of activity you're participating in. So the higher the intensity, the more carbohydrates your body uses. Also, the higher intensity, the more the muscle tears, which means there's more of a need for recovery. So one of our considerations is when you're dealing with a basketball player that's going to be sprinting up and down the court, is they need to go into that game with adequate carb stores so that their muscles are ready to contract and do their thing. And so that means throughout the day, she said in the example of like a 7 p.m. game, they're having a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which I'm sure we can dig back into later on in the video and actually go through some examples there. But ideally, there's some carbohydrates in each of those meals. And then if they're having, a dinner at, we'll just say, for example, 5 p.m., if you're 2 hours before, you can typically get a pretty full meal in, right? You can eat something pretty substantial. As you get closer to the event, you have to make it simpler and simpler, right? So if you were going to eat at 4 o'clock, 3 hours pre, you could eat a burrito bowl if you really wanted to. 2 hours pre, we might be looking at more of like a bagel and peanut butter with a banana kind of thing. 1 hour pre, we're probably looking at eating some fruit and maybe starting to sip on a sports beverage, right? So all of those, the thing they have in common is carbohydrates, but the difference is rice is a slow digesting carbohydrate, so it takes hours to get into the bloodstream, versus your bagel, which is a slightly faster digesting, versus your fruit and Gatorade, which is even faster. So you're kind of working it in so that there are carbohydrates in the bloodstream so they can go straight to the muscle. The muscle can then explode and work in an anaerobic state, right, where there's not enough oxygen in that environment, so you're out of breath, winded. The muscles can only use carbohydrates in that. Basketball is one of the few sports that actually does benefit utilizing Gatorade and other sports beverages. One, a lot of sweat, it's indoor, a lot of times the temperature and the humidity is off, so you lose a lot of sodium, but then you also are using sugar during that sprint. Now, if you're somebody that, you're a 6 or 7 man and you're logging 12 minutes, you probably don't need a sports beverage. But if you're a starter and you're logging 30 plus minutes on the court, you definitely should consider having some sort of Gatorade or Powerade or even a vitamin water that you're sipping on throughout that's keeping some sugar in your bloodstream. Because the worst thing that can happen is mid-game, you start to get a little shaky.
Yeah.
Right? You start to feel a little hypoglycemic. And immediately, right, that means your nerves are dysfunctioning, misfiring, so your touch completely gone, right? Your explosiveness in your jump completely gone. Your body's already falling behind, and it's too fast-paced of a game to catch up. So in basketball, it becomes the game of trying to basically preserve and prevent energy from depleting. And so I would actually encourage somebody to consider eating, if they're doing a 7 p.m. game, I probably wouldn't do the 4 p.m. dinner. I'd probably do like a later lunch, like a 1 or 2 o'clock lunch. And then around 5 o'clock-ish, I would have them do something like a bagel with some peanut butter and a banana, maybe a little bit of honey on it or something along those lines. And then start sipping on a Gatorade about 30 minutes before the game and sip on it through the game then. And that should keep carb stores adequate so that there's no energy crash. And then that sets it up so that you could have a dinner meal afterwards. And something to consider right after, right? So now you've spent, between 30 and 60 minutes tearing your muscles, exploding, jumping, cutting, pivoting, and those muscles now need to repair. And so most people immediately think protein, which is correct. Protein is the building block. But then from there, it also needs carbohydrate. And carbohydrate's kind of like the brick layer. It's what takes that brick and sort of builds that wall, so to speak. And so ideally, you'd have a carbohydrate and a protein source, whether that be that sort of, that burrito bowl kind of thing I mentioned before, like some chicken and rice. That's a great idea. Some people might opt for something a little lighter after an intense game, might not be as hungry. So some sort of smoothie, like a protein powder with some oats and some fruit and, some sort of milk product, whether it be dairy or non-dairy. Or even something as simple as like a yogurt, or the reason chocolate milk is really popular is it's naturally a 4-to-1 ratio of protein at 1 and carbs at 4. So you could even drink that, and that's going to allow muscle recovery and sort of rehydrate the body.
Okay, great. So just to recap a little bit, you have a game Friday at 7.
Yep.
Let's say for lunch, you could eat some carbohydrates like rice or rolled oats, something a little more slow digesting.
Yep.
Then around 5, maybe a bagel with some peanut butter and a banana.
Something a little faster, yep.
Okay, so, and then throughout the game, if you're a starter, which everybody watching this aspires to be a starter.
That's the goal. It's all about the competitive edge.
Right.
This is the kind of stuff that can make a starter at the end of the day.
Right.
So.
And so sipping a sports beverage like a Gatorade throughout the game, and then after a game, that's where you get your protein and your carbs, like that burrito bowl, or at least a yogurt, or something like that.
Exactly.
Okay, great. So let's talk about a weight training workout. Okay, I know exercise is your forte, so let's talk about a little bit of nutrition pre and post workout. So we talk about nutrition pre and post game. Let's say they want to do a vertical jump training workout, a lot of explosiveness, a lot of plyometrics, and they want to have the best nutrition to optimize that workout.
Yep.
What should they eat before that workout, and what should they eat after that workout?
Yeah, and that's, to be honest, it's going to be a little bit boring and a little repetitive because it's very much the same. So as a dietitian, what we look at is we look at type of exercise and then we adjust fueling accordingly. But really the adjustments are how much carbohydrate. And so when you have something like basketball, which is high intensity, it's going to be a lot of carbohydrate. When you have lifting, if it's a more standardized bodybuilding type of training, your heart rate's not quite as high, which means not as much of a carbohydrate burn. There's not as much of a cardiovascular output. But when you're talking about doing plyometric, box jumps, weighted lunges, and all sorts of high heart rate, minimal rest activity, that's no different than a basketball game. And so it's going to be the same kind of thing, some sort of really good carbohydrate like a bagel with peanut butter and a banana situation, and then post-workout having that protein and carb source right after. So we're framing carbs beforehand to make sure you get through the workout, and then we're setting it up so that afterwards you're getting protein and carbs to replenish and refuel. And if anything, a way to think about it is that pre and post-workout meal is really ideal because you can practice it when you're training and then you know that your body can trust it in game days, right? You know that if you're able to eat a bagel and have some peanut butter with it and then go do box jumps and be winded out of your mind, you're not going to throw it up when you're on the court, right? And so sometimes repetition is useful because it's predictable. So yeah, it'd be the same general concept actually.
What if we broke down, I know, a big thing that athletes are looking for when they're going and looking at things like pre-workout, right? It's like intra-set recovery.
Yeah.
Right? So why don't you talk a little bit about how to naturally get that effect, but without the unnecessary credit of pre-workout.
Oh, you mean so when we're talking.
Yeah, or why is that not a thing, or is it a thing?
Yeah.
Right? For the people watching. And then what might you do differently without that supplement?
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and I mean, we're going to dig into supplements probably in a little more depth, but we can use this as sort of a turning point. If your goal is to have explosive movement, right? A lot of times pre-workouts will get very exciting to people. Creatine does lead to explosive movement. It helps regenerate ATP. And so a creatine, particularly for basketball players, a creatine hydrochloride or creatine HCl is going to be a very valuable thing. And that can be found in a lot of the pre-workouts like a C4 or even some of those other like supplement-based pre-workouts. And all those things are meant to do is help regenerate energy in the muscle tissue and then help blood flow to basically keep your body in an oxygenated state. What that can do is that can set your body up so that you're able to burn a little bit more fat and a little bit less carb, which means you can go longer and go harder. So there is some value to what we'll call like pre-workout supplements. We have to be careful because a lot of the supplements fall into the hype category where once you start getting over 200 milligrams of caffeine, you're really wasting your time. You're setting yourself up to be so overstimulated that it's going to be dysfunctional. And in a sport that's obviously extremely athletic like basketball, but also requires a certain degree of finesse, ball rolling off the fingers type stuff, being overly jittery is not useful to you. Those types of pre-workouts aren't necessarily going to change what we eat, to be perfectly honest, because what we're eating, the goal is, and if I'm sitting down with an athlete, I'm going to actually look at their heart rate, look at their stats, and really see how many calories they're burning, because I can then estimate how many grams of carbohydrate they burn, and I can then fuel them exactly that carbohydrate. But it really becomes maintaining the integrity of those muscle cells, which means keeping adequate carbohydrate and keeping adequate electrolytes, right? The sodium and potassium, so the muscles can contract and they have the energy to contract. A pre-workout might give a little bit of a boost in terms of blood flow, which could be fun. During the actual course of the workout, the arginine and the beta-alanine, the idea is that it actually helps sort of prevent lactic acid or hydrogen ions from flushing, so your muscles cramp in a more delayed way. And the creatine helps you regenerate between sets. So those would be kind of the key, and like a C4 is a good example of a pre-workout that's really good. It's pretty common, it's not overly caffeinated, it includes all those key ingredients, and it's going to give sort of that little boost that allows you to flush between sets, recover a little more quickly. But once again, if you're not getting something like that Gatorade in or that simpler carbohydrate with that sodium, you're going to watch yourself fatigue a little faster. Post-workout, particularly for athletes like basketball players, I recommend magnesium. Magnesium is an essential mineral. We tend not to get enough of it in our diets, but more importantly, it's involved in most of our nerve responses and the relationship of our nerves and our muscles. And so after something as intense as the cutting and pivoting and explosive movements in basketball, there can be a little bit of a depletion there, which can delay recovery. So taking a 400 milligram magnesium supplement about 30 minutes before bed really does help improve sleep, helps regulate digestion, but also can sort of help restore that nervous system relationship to the muscles.
Okay, great. So to kind of recap this one.
Yeah.
An energy or pre-workout like a C4 would be okay before a basketball game.
Yeah.
But once you get over that 200 milligram caffeine mark, you're kind of defeating the purpose, and the finesse of the finger rolls and the jump shots are going to kind of leave you because you're overstimulated.
And sorry to interrupt, but it's also worth noting that caffeine sensitivity is unique to different people, right? So if you take the reason I like C4, it has like 130 milligrams, it's a cup of coffee.
Right.
If you're somebody that is like very caffeine sensitive. As you guys probably both know, I talk way too much, and I've been caffeine free for 10 years now. I don't need caffeine at all. I would just take a beta-alanine and arginine supplement separate from the actual caffeine altogether, because I don't want the stimulus. So judge the caffeine amount based on your tolerance, but 200 is the max that you benefit from. The rest of it's arginine, beta-alanine, and creatine in combination to help optimize intra-workout performance.
Okay, great. And then after your workout, or let's say before bed, having a magnesium supplement, like 400 milligrams, would be good. What about other supplements like whey protein is obviously very big. Are there any other supplements that you think that athletes could benefit from? And do you actually need supplements? Let's say we have a high school basketball player watching this who can't afford these supplements, and he's worried about, well, athlete A takes, their parents buy them every single supplement to optimize their performance. I can't afford any of those. Do I have the same chances to be as good? Let's say our training is the same, everything else is the same, diet, nutrition. Do I still have as good of a chance as athlete B to optimize my performance?
Yeah, supplements are a convenience. They are not an exception. So you can, if you don't have the money to get the magnesium, you can very easily eat a handful of almonds. Right? It has a good source of magnesium in it. Creatine and beta-alanine and arginine, all of those things, they all naturally occur in our food. Supplementing those levels can give you a little bit of a boost. That said, that's not really what I'd call like a huge competitive edge. It's really more of a training benefit, right? It's going to allow you to push your training a little harder, which you can still do, you just might have to do with a little bit more rest, right? Protein, whey protein is a great product. I definitely think it's a good part of a diet. I actually don't consider it a supplement. I consider it a food. It is just a protein source. It's no different than a chicken breast. It's just powdered and tastes like chocolate. I don't encourage people to just slug it back with water. Just like you wouldn't sit there and just like nom down on a chicken breast without food, right? Include it with things. Let it be the protein in some sort of meal or snack. So once again, with whey, is it good? Yes. Is it convenient? Yes. Is it absolutely essential? Absolutely not. Dairy products are 20% whey protein anyway. And so going back to that chocolate milk conversation, a glass of chocolate milk is going to have whey protein in it. It actually contains magnesium. It's going to have potassium in it. It's going to have a lot of those individual ingredients. All supplements do is they sort of like give it to you in a guaranteed form, right? And so if you don't have the ability to get the supplements, it's a chance to go and optimize the diet and look at the foods that contain those specific ingredients and really improve that way. Yeah. The only other supplement I would note that, from an athlete perspective, you mentioned the proteins. So we've got protein, creatine, the arginine and beta-alanine has some potentials to help sort of push that lactate threshold a little bit. And then the magnesium in the evening. The only other two that would really be a part of it, and they're not, again, one is what I would consider essential, which is vitamin D. Now vitamin D, if you live in Pittsburgh like we do, you should absolutely be supplementing it, athlete or not. Pretty much everybody should be taking vitamin D. If you live in California and you're outside shirtless in January playing basketball, skip it. You have no need for it. But vitamin D is essential for testosterone production. It's essential for muscle recovery, for bone density. So in the spirit of trying to make sure there's no fractures and that kind of stuff, vitamin D, 2000 IU, it's a little teeny gel cap, super easy to take. And then the only other one that would be worth considering is zinc. And zinc is really supportive of, once again, nervous system function, and then also it's part of our testosterone-based axis as males. And so trying to support optimal recovery and optimal nerve production, that zinc-magnesium combo. And a lot of people have probably seen or heard of ZMA, which is zinc magnesium aspartate. It's literally zinc and magnesium together, taken before bed to help optimize that exact thing. That's why that supplement exists. Now, same thing I said before, if you have a peanut butter sandwich each day and eat a handful of almonds, and you eat good quality unrefined grains, like a Dave's Killer bread, for example, your magnesium and zinc is going to naturally be a part of that. If you eat some seafood or some shellfish and you eat animal protein, your zinc is going to naturally be a part of that. So as a dietitian, I can always help people just get that in their food, but the supplement is just sort of that convenience.
Okay, and then what about vitamin D? What food, if we can't get it from the sun, we live in Pittsburgh, we can't buy it.
Yeah.
What food could we eat to?
That's actually why I said that one's the one that pretty much everyone needs to supplement, is we really don't get it from food.
Okay.
The USDA regulated adding vitamin D to dairy products in like the 70s, I think, but the amount they add is 180 IU, and we need at least 2,000.
Yeah.
And so even if drinking a gallon of milk a day, I guess but that's not going to do anybody any favors. Mushrooms have a little bit, like there's trace amounts in key foods. Fish, mushrooms, and dairy are kind of your main three, but it'd be really hard to consistently get anywhere close to 1,000 IU a day. So it really is one of the best supplements, but you can go on Amazon, type in vitamin D3 2000 IU, and for like $6 you can get a year supply.
Oh, yeah.
It's a ridiculously cheap supplement, and like I said, if you live in the Northeast, you should be taking that at least 2,000 right now. I take 5,000 this time of year, just so that I can stay happy and peppy for all my clients.
Okay, great. So we've talked about pre and post nutrition for sporting events, and I'm guessing that would be the same for practices.
Absolutely.
As well. We've talked about pre and post workout nutrition. If you have like a vertical jump or a leg day or even an upper body day. We've talked about supplements that you can take to optimize your performance. We talked about the foods that you can eat to get those supplements if you can't buy them. So we talked about a lot of nutrition. I'd like to dive into the exercise side.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
So, like I said, most people watching are basketball players. We do have the football players, the volleyball players, the athletes in general. We do have an older population of 24 to 35-year-old males who like to work out and maybe playing like a men's league. But the one question I have for you is, what would be the absolute best, if there is one, workout split that somebody watching could do weekly to optimize their athletic performance the most? So is it push-pull legs? Is it upper body, lower body? Is it a bro split, arms on Monday, chest up, Monday's chest day?
Right.
But what would be the best?
It's a couple different things. It's the age of the athlete, the demands of the schedule, and then within that schedule, where are the games and the more high intensity practices. That is what's going to determine how you structure your program. So it's not just like a one best kind of split, right? There's a million ways to chop it. It's just a matter of where are your stressors put, and then how do we consolidate them, right? So we want to consolidate our stressors. Most is within, let's say it's called a competition week, right? Let's say there's a game on Friday, right? And we have our high intensity practice on Tuesday. Most of my power work is probably going to be on Monday or Tuesday, right? Because we're consolidating those stressors. Best actually on Tuesday after your vertical jump or, quick scrimmages and things like that, right? We want to consolidate those stressors, so that we kind of have a compound effect of the stress that's on our body, but also it maximizes our rest time, right? Between our power output, which does a number to our central nervous system in terms of we need a lot of time to recover from it, and to the competition, right? Now, if you're looking at an off season, completely different. There's no competition, right? So how do I structure it to make the most out of my week? What does the rest of your schedule look like? And then you can kind of structure it that way. I will say that most often for an athlete, I'm not a big proponent of bro splits, right? Of push-pull splits or arm-leg splits, but more using the body as a whole unit and focusing more on pushing or pulling, squatting or hinging on different days, but not necessarily being exclusive of one another. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's how I really do it. Is I'd say, first of all, what's the age? What's the competition schedule? Where are you in the year? And then where are the competitions? And then you want to get your highest power output for your week. You don't just because you have a game on Friday doesn't mean you don't want to lift heavy that week, or doesn't mean you don't want to jump that week, right? It just means you want to do it within the most reasonable time so that you have the most amount of time to recover from it before you have to then replicate that effort.
Okay, so that would be like a Tuesday.
Yeah, or Monday, Tuesday probably. Yeah, you're usually looking for about 2 to 3 days for a good recovery before a competition.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
I would usually do it. Sorry, on Monday or Tuesday.
That's it. That's one of the biggest questions I get on this channel is how should my training differ in season and out of season? And I get a lot of the questions. Should I? Because I have a free vertical jump training program, and people often ask, should I still be following this vertical jump program the same way now that I'm in season? Because most people watching this are basketball players and they are in season right now. So what would you say are the major differences that you could kind of point out for training in season and training out of season?
Sure.
So now that they're in season, what should they be doing different?
Sure. Well, and my thought is the big difference is that you're going to do more focused skill work in your strength conditioning sessions during the off season, right? You don't need to jump train during the in season. You're getting thrown all kinds of stressors at you. You're jumping already a lot as it is. Same thing with your conditioning. We're not going to do a whole lot of alactic conditioning during the season because all your gameplay takes care of that. So during the off season is when I would focus more on skill work. If something like a jumping, it's when I'd focus more on aerobic, alactic, and also lactic training, but in different time continuums, right? There's just the ratios of how much we're doing differ between off season and in season. And then the goal of the in season is to basically slowly build, whereas in the off season you just want to build as optimally as fast as possible to be able to maintain it throughout an entire off season, stay healthy, right? So during the in season, you don't want to take your weights down per se. You just want to really consider your volume, right? The closer you get to your games, the less volume you want to do. That doesn't mean you really need to change the weight that you're using at all. Certain situations are going to differ on that depending on the person and their rate of recovery, their nutrition, how well they're sleeping. It's all dependent upon the day, the person, and kind of the surroundings that's going to make them successful in the day. But then in the off season, you really want to push for as much as you can to be able to, make that big picture, to really pull in as much new strength output, right? Max strength, max power, rate of recovery, condition, all that is when you're training it. And it's just a matter of how advanced or how experienced are you as an athlete will determine how many of those factors you can train simultaneously. The less advanced athlete is going to be able to focus on a few more factors at once because they can improve in more areas. Whereas a more experienced athlete really needs to focus on one thing and hammering those physical attributes and those physical qualities, focusing on that as much as they can in certain time periods, depending on what you're trying to achieve. So I hope that answers it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just want to build just almost like to simplify it too in a way is I think a lot of times athletes forget that the game itself, right, is
training.
Workout.
Right.
And more importantly, it's actually the most comprehensive of the workout. Right? It is strength, it is stamina, it is power, it is speed, it is flexibility, it is balance. And the entire point of a workout program is to pull one of those out and isolate it to help create a more balanced game. And so that's what Ryan does, right? Is his role is to identify the imbalances of all those components of a player, and then in the off season or during the season on those extra days, those training days, focus on one of those components so that all of them can be balanced. And so if you're somebody that has a 48-inch vertical, right, you don't need to be working on your vertical during the season because you're playing games and you're doing scrimmages that are allowing you to jump. But if you're crazy and flexible, and you have really tight hamstrings, you're going to take that Monday or Tuesday and you're going to do hamstring-based mobility. So it's, the game is a comprehensive exercise outlet, and the role of someone like him is to help identify the pieces that need to be lifted up so that they can all support a balanced performance.
It's a great way to put it. That's why I said, in the off season, we're more so going to isolate the jumping and things like that. Yeah. Whereas in the in season, you really need to take that time that you would focus on your skill or your conditioning and focus on your mobility, flexibility, maybe even a little bit of aerobic conditioning to be able to shuttle the blood lactate and so on and so forth from there, which is going to be the best way to recover post really hard workout. That's why, on a Monday or Tuesday, if you go through that hard workout, you're going to be pretty sore, right? You take the next couple days to just focus on good movement, quality, stretching, mobility, maybe depending on the person and the time and things, a little slow long distance running. There's a million different ways you can do it without running as well. Just going through mobility flows and just making sure basically that your heart rate is above 135 is for over 15 to 20 minutes. That's basically the biggest thing.
So you were talking about mobility, flexibility, how important that is in season. Mm-hmm. How often would an athlete integrate that? Because you guys are a lot about habits. The Optilife Academy is all about building the right habits to have that healthy lifestyle. How often should they incorporate mobility and flexibility into their routines? Should it be daily? Mm-hmm. If so, how much daily, and things like that?
I personally am a proponent of a habit-based approach, right? Of doing it for 10 minutes, right? If that's a good number for you, 5 to 15 every day. And if it's not focusing on the entirety of your body, focusing on at least your weak point or your tight point in this case, right? And so you're going to hear a lot of different things. That's the way that I've figured out what works best for recovery standpoint. If it's in the in-season, you're going to do it even before your practices and your games, as well as after and the day after. But in the off-season, your training is your game for that day. So you're going to do it a little bit before and after as well. The thing that I've found with a lot of this, myofascial release and mobility and stuff, is that the effect of it isn't going to just happen if you do it for longer periods of time, right? It's going to happen if you practice the right things consistently. And so, being able to take a little bit of time, and that's what, pro athletes, higher level athletes, right? They're taking their body maintenance is everything, right? So focusing on that a little bit every day is going to be the best approach.
Okay, great. So talking about mobility, Tim Grover, who is Michael Jordan, he was Michael Jordan's trainer, Kobe Bryant's trainer, Charles Barkley, Dwayne Wade. I once read his book, I think it was called Jump Attack, which actually talks about vertical jump. In that book, he said, tight hips equal less athleticism. If you open up your hips, you become more athletic. Number one, is that true? Because I read that and I immediately wanted to start doing things to open up my hips. Is that true? And if so, what could somebody watching do daily for that habit to open up their hips and become more athletic?
If the tightness in the hips is indeed a hip issue, then yes, it would limit you, right? But tight hips can come from a number of different things that have nothing to do with your hips. And so you might just be doing hip openers for nothing because there's no issue there, right? The best thing that I can say, unfortunately, is that you need to find a professional who knows what they're looking for. You could have a tight hip because of your gait is incorrect and your foot sits off the wrong way. It's
5 tight hips.
Yeah, exactly.
2 knee surgeries and this foot goes in.
So I can work on his hips all day. It's never going to do anything.
But he gave me stretches for my hamstrings that allows me mobility, and all of a sudden my hips open up.
Right, and also you have your people out there who are overmobile, they're hypermobile, and therefore their hips are tight because they can take their joints outside of a normal range of motion, which in which case stretching is highly, just really not good for them at all. They need to strengthen and isolate and do isometrics and really focus on pulling it together. So while it's good to say that, if you have tight hips, you're going to be more mobile, you'll be more fluid, you'll be more athletic, it's really, I don't really feel comfortable saying one thing because there's all these subsections of people that have tight hips for different reasons. You really need to figure out what's the best thing that's working for you. If you can't afford or you can't, it's just not feasible for you to go see somebody and figure out what's going on, you're going to be in the test-retest column. Right? Figure out, is it my hip that's really tight? Is it my hip flexor? Is it my lower back? Right? Or is it something beneath? and focus on different forms of foam rolling, myofascial release, massage. Focus on if it's mobility training, focusing on range of motion and not length of muscle, right? So I'm not going to do like hamstring stretches, which lengthens the length of the muscle. I really wanted to open up a range of motion so that I can do things like open my hips and turn faster, right? There's a big difference there and a lot of confusion amongst athletes around that. But also you need to know, are you hypermobile? In that case, you don't want to stretch at all because you're putting yourself at a higher risk for injury. So I hate to say it, but there's not one answer to that,
Okay, so figure out what it is. If you can't see a professional, do the test, retest. You know your body best. Are my hamstrings extremely tight? Am I over mobile? And kind of go from there and check off the boxes.
Yeah.
And
you can even, you can look for these types of issues: hypermobility, lack of range of motion, self-myofascial release. All these things can be found on YouTube, right? We talk about it a bit in the academy, and maybe it's something for us to keep in mind to be able to put a little bit more in later. But for sure, that's something that you need to be aware of and know how your body functions, what are your limitations, and not just because Tim Jordan says it. That doesn't mean that your hips are like what he's thinking, right? You need to know your body.
Okay, great. So you mentioned the academy. I would like to talk about the academy a little bit because I think what you guys offer is extremely valuable. Even for myself, there was a lot that I went through that I learned that I didn't know before. And I'd like to think that I know a decent bit, but I went through it and I actually got a lot of value out of it. So what is Optilife Academy, and why would somebody watching this video benefit from that?
Yeah. So the Optilife Academy it's essentially Ryan and I's brainchild, right? A collective brainchild where it's an online course. It's a do-it-yourself program. So whether you access it on your phone or your tablet or your laptop, you log in, and it has 20 modules, and the modules are split between nutrition, where I help people understand how to fuel their body, how to navigate diet and culture, and sort of this sort of diet culture that we've created in the United States, which in many ways confuses those that are trying to perform and those trying to improve their health. And then I really help individuals sort of use habit creation to develop positive awareness of food. And then in the exercise section, Ryan can elaborate, but there's a deep breathing, a foam rolling, a stretching, a cardiovascular module, and then there's a section on the foundation movement patterns and modifications for injuries, which that particular region, and then the stretching and foam rolling piece are probably two of the pieces that I would consider foundational habits that pretty much any person that's physically active would benefit from. And so if you're somebody that's looking for a competitive edge in your sport or in your personal goals, these, the modules are basically built to be a foundation that is essential nutrition and essential activity that you can then build on as a base and really, really flourish. And so while it does have a large following in the world of like weight loss and body composition change, as you said, right, as someone who's very athletic, the understanding of nutrition you gain from it and how to fuel your body, the understanding of balance, mobility, strength, and sort of, those pillars that we talked about a little earlier with training, all of that is in the Optilife Academy in video form with some written content and over 30 downloadable handouts that you can use for application and awareness and recipes and grocery store shopping lists, you name it, it has it.
I think what's really cool about what we're talking about here is that whenever I got into the sports performance field, my singular goal was to be, growing up, I never felt like I had a good coach who would just tell me what to do, right? If you just told me to eat like Andrew told you to eat, if you just told me to focus on my mobility for 10 minutes a day and then go out and practice my vertical jump for whatever, if you just told me what to do, I would have done it. Right, and I think with the age group of people that are watching this and your channel, I feel like a lot of us are in that same group, right? Where we didn't have all the new, personal one-on-one coaches developing these athletes and getting them to where they want to be today. And so if you didn't have that, then you're missing a little bit of a foundation of good nutrition, good training, how to take care of your body. And I feel like the Optilife Academy can be that coach that tells you to do this. And you're going to have a much better foundation for which then you can really add all the new fancy stuff on top of,
Yeah.
you know, and I feel like that's really going to give a lot of people some stability they may feel like they've been lacking, where they don't really have to search for the answers anymore. They have a more educated view of how to treat their body, and then they can figure out, you know, based off of this, now I can go and I can seek out specific specialized things for my vertical skill or whatever that is. Right.
Yeah.
And I agree that Optilife Academy really is that foundation. So like Ryan said, it's not going to give you the specifics of how to do a certain skill that you're looking for, like how do I improve my crossover, or how do I take my vertical jump from a 40 to a 42, but it's going to give you the foundational knowledge in nutrition and in exercise that you're going to need at the beginning. Then you can take and build on top of that. And another thing I wanted to mention is that you guys are going to continue adding content into the Optilife Academy.
Yeah.
So you get access now, and you get it for one time, but then you get all the videos that you guys are going to put in the future.
Absolutely.
And one thing that I really did like was the handouts. Just because I'm biased, because I love my subscribers so much, I'd like to give them a little bit more value and ask you one more question when it comes to nutrition.
Absolutely.
Because I was going through the handouts and I saw your shopping list and immediately thought I need to print this out and take this to the grocery store with me. But one thing that I would like you to kind of explain is, through that shopping list, which you get access to, it's a handout, you can print it out, take it to the store with you. Could you give the viewers an example of a breakfast, lunch, and dinner that they could take from that list and eat tomorrow? Let's say they're watching this video, they get that list, and they want to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner from that list tomorrow to optimize their nutrition and their performance.
Absolutely, I could do that. And what's nice is, like you said, in the course at the end, you know, there's the grocery list, and there's also actually recipe blogs for breakfast, lunches, dinners, and snacks. And so not only can I just give one here, but in that course, there's going to be 5 breakfasts, 5 lunches, 5 dinners, and then 5 snacks that can be interchangeable and used. But so if you were, you know, what we'll try and do is, let's see if I can do this while keeping in track of the grocery list too. So breakfast, it's cold now, so we'll go with an overnight oats, right? So overnight oats is, you do a half cup of rolled oats or old-fashioned oats, and you can either do a cup of Greek yogurt, or you could do a scoop of protein powder, whichever you prefer as your protein source, and then a cup of frozen berries, a little bit of almond milk, and then you literally shake it up, put it in the fridge overnight, and it's ready to go. And then we get to a lunchtime. It'd be really easy, especially lunch. It tends to be convenience, portability, that kind of thing. So it'd be really easy to do a turkey sandwich with cheese and lettuce and tomato, and then maybe have some hummus with, you know, some like carrots, for example, on the side, perhaps a banana or an apple. And then we roll into pre-workout snack, assuming that workout's happening somewhere in the late afternoon, evening. I'm definitely a big fan of the bagel scenario, or even like a peanut butter toast kind of thing. And if you did an apple at lunch, we could do a banana at dinner, have good carb base to go into that workout. And then post-workout, we set you up and we get, you know, some sort of lean protein, whether it be a chicken or, you know, a ground beef or a ground turkey or some sort of fish, with some rice and then maybe some peppers and spinach mixed into it, or even a frozen bag of broccoli, right? And so that would give you a breakfast, a lunch, a snack, a dinner that has a protein, carb, and quality fat along the way. Keeps you satisfied, keeps you fueled, and then optimizes recovery. And from that, you could see on a grocery list, you would need to have either yogurt or protein powder. You would need to have a tub of oatmeal. You would need to have frozen berries of some kind, probably a quart or half gallon of like an almond milk or skim milk or whatever type of milk you drink. You'd need a loaf of bread. You would need some turkey breast, cheese, lettuce, and tomato. You would definitely need some apples and bananas. And then you would need some bagels, peanut butter, rice, and frozen veggies, and some sort of animal protein. Right? And so we can set that up so that it's grocery list, automated, ready to go. Something along those lines is already in the course and built and ready.
And here's something, I think this is a good visual for the viewers as well. Something that you'll learn in the Optilife Academy is, okay, now you have what you just explained, right? Now I have a nut allergy. How does that change the grocery list?
Yeah.
Right? So just, tell them how easy that swap is, right?
It's an easy swap. So right out of the gates, you can do a sunflower butter instead of a peanut butter. And sunflower butter is allergen-free, and 2 tablespoons of it has 200 calories, 16 grams of fat, 7 grams of carbs, 7 grams of protein, just like 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. Right, we can swap that out just like that, and then all of a sudden the nuts are gone. And in the academy, we kind of dig into sort of food as almost like a plug and play, right? So it allows people to start learning how to swap things and optimize things. There's a section that discusses the different food groups, and not just food groups in terms of fruits, vegetables, but in terms of carbs, fats, and proteins, and how you can swap and plug and play them so that you can get your energy.
Just learning how to think about
Fuel.
Right.
Yeah.
You're learning how to think about food as a fuel source, and how to, that you don't have to get stuck on what food it is, but what is the contents that creates that food,
right.
and then being able to use those interchangeably in your mind.
Exactly.
Which is extremely valuable. And so I guess the last question that I have for you is, where can they find out more about Optilife Academy? How do they get access to it? How much does it cost? How long will they have it, etc.?
Those are great questions. So OptilifeAcademy.com is the easiest place to check it out. We actually have a free trial on the Academy, so you can go on and you can sample a couple of the videos and see a couple of the handouts if you need convinced that it's a useful tool.
Yeah, it's just /trial. Optilife.com
/trial. And on there, you can actually purchase the entire Optilife Academy for $99. So that includes the 20 modules, the exercise and the nutrition, all the handouts, all the videos. It has, like I said, over 30 handouts, over 50 videos, a ton of written content. Not to mention the blog, where we have probably 20-some blog posts and we're constantly adding. So a lot of content there for $99. Or if you just want the nutrition or just want the exercise section, they're $59 each. Once you purchase it, you have lifetime access to it. So it is your data bank. You can do as you please with it. A lot of the videos are meant to be gone back in and revisited. My section focuses on a lot of mindset, which is something to refocus and recalibrate. Ryan's section has a ton of videos that focus on mechanics and mobility and properly executing exercises. His handouts walk people through, after you go through the deep breathing section, there's a 10-minute deep breathing routine at the end, right? So there's a lot of content that people will go back to, repurpose, and utilize again. And then again, obviously, hopefully you're able to link it, and we're excited. We're going to give you guys, anyone on your YouTube series that watches this and follows your link, we're going to give them 20% off. And so they'll get it basically for $80 or whatever it would be. I think $48 for individual sections. And I'll leave it up to you to post the link and announce to your people.
Right. So, and what I'm actually going to do on top of that is, you already there's a link down below in the description if you are interested in the Optilife Academy, and 20% off if you use that link. Also, I will give you access to all of my programs. So both vertical jump programs and the knee program that I just released, you will have access to that as well. So you get over 50 videos, all the content, and the 3 programs that I offer as well, all for that price right there, and lifetime access. So, awesome. Andrew,
love it. Hey, man, always a pleasure.
Good to meet you, brother.
Thank you guys a lot.
Yeah.